Did you know, there are bodies in this world that refuse to rot? No coffins. No embalmers. No chemicals. Just flesh, bones, and silence. High in the mountains of the Philippines and South America, storm winds carve the cliffs like knives. Clouds wrap themselves around the peaks, and the air is thin enough to cut. Somewhere up there, hidden behind ancient stone and jungle vines, are caves where time forgot to move forward. Inside these caves, people lie in seated positions, arms folded, heads bowed, as if they merely fell asleep. Some died hundreds of years ago, yet their skin still clings to their bones. Their hair still rests on their scalps. Some even still have eyelashes. Science has tried to explain it. Religion has claimed it. Locals whisper about it. But no one really knows why these bodies never decay. Tonight, we are walking into those caves. Imagine stepping inside. It's cold, but not freezing. Dry, but not dusty. The cave walls drip slowly, like the earth is breathing. And then, your eyes adjust to the dark. Rows of human beings sit against the stone. Their cheeks sunken. Their skin leathery and tight. Their lips cracked like ancient parchment. And their eyes, half open, as if watching. This is not a movie. Not makeup. Not a legend. These bodies are real. For centuries, the locals have carried their dead up the mountains, sat them inside the caves, and left them there, untouched. No ritual treatment. No preservation chemicals. Nothing. Yet the bodies remain, frozen in time. Scientists thought it must be the cool air. But there are places just as cold where bodies rot normally. Then they blamed the minerals. But testing proved that the soil around the caves was ordinary. Then they thought it was the altitude, thinner oxygen, maybe. But again, it didn't fully explain the phenomenon. Because something stranger is going on. Even when humidity rises, even during rainstorms, even during seasons where bacteria should thrive, the bodies stay intact. No mold. No maggots. No decay. It's as if death was paused. Some scientists quietly admit there's no scientific explanation that fits every body. Some show fat still under the skin. Some show dried organs. Some look disturbingly fresh. And then there's the part that many don't like to talk about. People who visit these caves hear things. A whisper in a language they don't know. Footsteps behind them when no one else is around. A breath on the back of the neck when the air is still. The locals say the bodies are not empty. That their spirits never left. That something binds them here. Some villagers refuse to go near the caves after sunset. Others claim the preserved bodies move slightly over the years, changing posture, shifting position, or leaning in new directions. Of course, scientists call that myth. They say it's erosion. Or gravity. Nothing supernatural. But then there's the strangest part of all. The faces. Some bodies died peacefully. Their mouths are relaxed. Their eyelids are soft. Their expression is calm. But others. Their mouths hang open, as if frozen in a final scream. Teeth clenched. Lips pulled. Eyes wide. Hands tensed. as if something came for them in their final seconds, and whatever it was, they saw it. No marks. No wounds. No signs of violence. Just terror, sealed into their flesh forever. To the villagers, those faces are proof. Proof that death wasn't natural. Proof that something in the mountains took them. They say these caves were once used by ancient priests who practiced forbidden rituals, rituals meant to trap the spirits of the dead. Some believe the bodies stayed intact because their souls were never released. Others believe the caves themselves are alive. That they consume breath, but never return bodies to the earth. Think about that for a moment. Every human being eventually returns to dust. We rot. We break apart. But these bodies do not. The earth refuses to swallow them. And tonight, as we explore deeper, you'll hear the stories of researchers who studied the caves, and swore they weren't alone. Hikers who heard voices calling their names. Villagers who woke up to footprints leading from the caves to their houses. And one explorer, who entered the caves and never came out. Before we continue, like this video, subscribe and tell me where you are watching from. If you stand in front of these caves long enough, you'll notice something strange. They breathe. Not literally, of course. But the wind moves in and out of them in long, rhythmic pulses, like something inside is inhaling and exhaling. Locals say the caves are alive. Scientists say it's just natural airflow. But the villagers ask a different question. If it's just wind, then why does it sound like whispering? Inside these caves, the silence is heavy, like walking into a cathedral built for the dead. Every sound reverberates. Every footstep feels like an intrusion. And then the lantern light catches the bodies. Some seated. Some leaning. Some propped against the stone. All staring in the same direction, toward the mouth of the cave, as if waiting for someone to return. For centuries, these mountains belonged to indigenous tribes. When someone died, they were carried upward, past cliffs, forests, and roaring rivers, until the family reached these sacred caves. Their belief was simple. The higher you go, the closer you are to the spirits. At first, outsiders assumed the tribes used herbs or oils to preserve the dead. But when scientists examined the bodies, they found nothing. No resin. No embalming. No chemical residue. Just skin, bone, and time, refusing to act like time. One researcher, Dr. Miguel Ortega, spent 3 weeks living near the caves. And when he returned home, he wasn't the same. At first he spoke calmly about his findings. About air pressure, humidity, thermal pockets, and microorganisms. He tried to explain everything with logic. But his colleagues noticed something unsettling. Every time he talked about the bodies, his voice got quieter. His hands shook. His eyes darted toward empty corners, like someone else was listening. Eventually, he stopped giving interviews. He stopped answering calls. And in his final written notes, found months later, he wrote only one sentence. They don't want to be forgotten. No explanation. No data. No conclusions. Just that. When tourists began visiting the caves, strange stories followed. One hiker claimed that while she was filming, the sound in her camera changed, like multiple voices were whispering behind her. When she turned around, the corpses were still, but she swore their heads were angled differently than before. Another traveler said he saw movement in the corner of his eye. Small movements. The twitch of a finger. The tilt of a head. The slow shift of a smile. Most people don't believe him. But no one can explain the photograph he took. The body behind him in the picture was leaning forward, far more than it should have been. Almost like it was listening. And then there is the most famous case, the disappearance of Diego Salazar. Diego was a documentary filmmaker. Confident. Experienced. Skeptical of anything paranormal. He believed the caves were just an environmental anomaly, nothing more. He went in with 2 cameras, a lantern, and a backpack. His guide, an older villager, waited outside. Hours passed. Then night fell. Then silence. The guide called out, but no answer came. When rescuers arrived the next morning, they found Diego's lantern still burning inside the cave. His camera was on the ground, recording nothing but darkness. But Diego was gone. No blood. No drag marks. No clothing left behind. No footprints leading back out. Just disappearance. Some say he got lost in hidden tunnels. Others say he fell into a crevice. But the villagers whisper a different truth. They say the caves took him. Because Diego spoke too loudly. Walked too boldly. And did not show respect. Whether you believe that or not, something about Diego's case is undeniable. His footage was recovered. And in the last few seconds, just before the feed cuts out, you hear something. Not footsteps. Not wind. Not animals. A voice. Soft. Close. Almost touching the microphone. It says one word, barely audible, but unmistakable. Stay. After that, tourism to the caves dropped. The villagers warned outsiders not to go in alone. Some sealed the entrances with stones. But every few years, someone curious comes along. Someone who wants to see the bodies that refuse to rot. Some return. Some don't. And the caves remain patient. Because caves have time. The dead have time. And only the living ever feel in a hurry. Hey, like this video if you haven't. When you first see them, your brain refuses to understand. They look alive. Not fresh, not healthy, but present. Their cheeks are hollow, their skin pulled tight like dried leather, but their expressions remain. And that is the most horrifying part. Death usually softens the face. Muscles relax. Tension vanishes. But not here. Some of these bodies have eyebrows slightly raised. Some show teeth in half-open mouths. Some have lips curled upward, like a grin frozen in place. Others look terrified. Eyes wide. Jaw clenched. Neck muscles still strained. For centuries, villagers whispered that the dead saw something before they crossed over. Something that frightened them enough to carve fear into their final expression. No wounds. No signs of struggle. Just raw terror, preserved. When researchers photographed the faces over time, they expected the features to sag, collapse, crumble. But year after year, decade after decade, the faces stayed the same. Unchanging. As if something inside the bodies refused to release them. A forensic researcher named Elena Markov visited the site in 1987. She expected science. She found something else. She spent most of her time documenting facial structures, skin texture, bone density. But at night, she slept in a small cabin near the cave entrance. Every morning, she woke up with the same sensation. Someone had been watching her. Not from the door. Not from the window. From underneath the bed. She tried to ignore it. She blamed stress. She blamed her imagination. Until the fourth night. She woke to the sound of breathing. Slow, raspy inhalations. Not her own. She opened her eyes. The cabin was dark. The air was cold. The breathing grew louder, like something was inches from her face. Elena reached for her flashlight and slowly turned it on. There was nothing there. But the muddy footprints on the floor told a different story. Small. Bare. Human. Leading from the door. To her bed. Elena left the mountain the next day and refused to ever return. She never published her research. When asked about the caves years later, she only said one thing. Some bodies are empty. But not all of them. It's easy to assume villagers exaggerate. Stories pass through generations. Myths become memories. Legends become warnings. But not all witnesses were believers. Some were tourists. Hikers. Scientists. Even soldiers. A military team once used the caves as a temporary shelter during a storm. Tough men. Unafraid. Logical. But when they left the next morning, none of them spoke. Not to their commanders. Not to each other. Some refused to sleep in enclosed spaces for months afterward. One soldier eventually broke his silence. He said that while the others slept, he kept watch. Around 3 a.m., he heard movement deeper in the cave. Slow, dragging steps. Like feet sliding across stone. He raised his flashlight, expecting an animal. What he saw was worse. One of the bodies was standing. Not fully upright. Not walking. Just barely rising, leaning forward like a puppet pulled by invisible strings. The soldier screamed. His flashlight flickered. When the light returned, nothing had moved. The body was sitting exactly where it had been. His comrades didn't believe him at first. They laughed. Called him tired. Stressed. Seeing shadows. Until they inspected the ground. The stone beneath the seated corpse was marked. Fresh tracks. As if something heavy had shifted its weight and dragged across the floor. These men swore never to return. And they didn't. But the strangest cases are reports of changing faces. Not dramatically. Not like a movie monster. Subtle changes. A mouth slightly more open than before. Eyes looking to a different direction. A grimace that wasn't there yesterday. Visitors who take photographs sometimes compare them days later, and the faces don't match. Of course, skeptics blame lighting. Angles. The mind playing tricks. But some photos are impossible to explain. like the one taken by a college student hiking the region. In the first image, the corpse's eyes are half closed. In the next, taken minutes later, they are wide open. Scientists dismiss it. Villagers don't. They say the dead here are listening, watching, waiting. They say the spirits in these bodies are restless, trapped between life and death, unable to move on. Some claim the faces change for a reason. Because the bodies are aware of who comes to visit. And every time someone enters the cave, the dead learn a little more about the living. The villagers don't call them mummies. They call them the watching ones. To outsiders, that sounds like superstition. But to the people who have lived beneath these mountains for centuries, the caves are not tombs. They are prisons. According to tribal folklore, these bodies belong to the dead who refuse the afterlife. Some out of grief, some out of rage, and others because they made a bargain with something far older than human beings. Legends say the mountains weren't always silent. Once, they were alive with rituals. When a person died, their body wasn't buried. Instead, they were taken to the caves, seated upright, and left to face the world they were departing. The tribe believed that if a soul still had unfinished business, if it carried hatred, or secrets, or sins, it would linger in the body. Unable to leave. Unable to decay. Over time, the living learned to fear those who stayed behind. Because the longer a soul remains trapped, the more restless it becomes. The elders say that at night, when mist crawls across the cliffs and the moon disappears behind clouds, the dead whisper. They speak to each other in voices too low for the living to hear. They remember their lives, their anger, their unfinished stories. Some villagers refuse to speak their names aloud. To name them is to summon them. Others say the bodies do something worse than whisper, they watch. People have reported feeling eyes following them through the darkness. A cold breath behind their ear. A hand brushing their shoulder when no one is there. Scientists dismiss the stories. But every scientific explanation has failed. In 1994, a team of anthropologists performed a controlled experiment. They took soil samples, humidity readings, microscopic tissue samples, and atmospheric measurements. They even placed modern corpses inside similar caves to compare decay rates. Every modern body decomposed normally. But the ancient bodies stayed untouched. No bacterial growth. No tissue breakdown. No structural collapse. One scientist, Dr. Randall Pierce, made a bold statement during his research. There is something protecting these bodies. Something we do not understand. His colleagues discouraged him from publishing such a claim. They warned him it would ruin his career. It could discredit the entire study. But Pierce insisted. He believed something, biological or supernatural, was preventing decay. Something connected to the land itself. When the report was finally released, it was labeled inconclusive. But privately, many of the researchers admitted fear. Because hidden in the data was something chilling. Some of the bodies still had measurable electrical charge in their nerves. Not enough for movement. Not enough for life. But enough for something. Pierce tried to replicate the findings years later, but every other cave in the region showed normal decay. Only the sacred caves were different. Something about them was unique. something the villagers had known all along. The tribe refuses to allow the bodies to be moved. They say removing them would wake whatever holds them there. One elder told a visiting journalist, "The dead stay in the mountains because the mountains still want them." Another claimed, "If you take them down, they will follow." It's easy to call these stories fear, superstition, myth. But then there are the outsiders who don't believe, until they witness something themselves. A tourist once took a piece of rock from inside the cave as a souvenir. A harmless act, he thought. Something to show his friends back home. 2 nights later, he woke to scratching at his window. Soft at first, then louder, then desperate. When he finally looked outside, there were no animals, no branches, only footprints in the mud. Human footprints. Small, bare, wet. They led from the darkness of the forest, straight to his window, and then vanished. The next morning, he returned the rock. And he never went back. There is a reason villagers warn travelers. Do not touch the bodies. Do not look into their eyes. And never enter the cave alone. Because once you see the dead that do not decay, something changes inside you. Not just fear. Something deeper. The knowledge that time does not own all things. That the earth does not reclaim everyone. That death is not always the end. In these mountains, the past is not gone. It is waiting. Watching. Listening. And if the legends are true, some of the dead aren't trapped. They're choosing to stay. Did you know the people who studied these caves didn't return home the same? Some came back with panic attacks. Some abandoned entire careers. Some refused to speak about what they saw at all. And then there are the ones who won't speak because they're afraid the caves are still listening. Sounds dramatic, right? But these are not random tourists or ghost hunters. These are trained professionals, anthropologists, forensic experts, archaeologists. People who build their lives around facts, not fear. So what did they hear? What did they see? And why do they keep disappearing from public record? In 2007, a Japanese archaeological group received private funding to excavate deeper into the cliffside tunnels. The mission was simple. Map the chambers. Collect bone samples. Determine dates of burial. They entered the caves in spring. They were supposed to stay 2 weeks. They lasted 3 days. Their notes, what survived, sound less like scientific journals and more like horror scripts. Day 1. Bodies intact. Skin dry. Organs desiccated. Preservation unnatural. Day 2. Noticed faint sound in lower chamber. Not wind. Day 3. Leaving immediately. Tunnel changes shape. Walls move. That last sentence shouldn't be possible. Stone doesn't move. Caves don't reshape themselves. But the researchers abandoned all equipment, cameras, samples, tools, and climbed out before dawn. Back in Japan, the team leader refused all interviews. The only thing he confirmed was this: we are not going back. No explanation. No results. No final report. The expedition simply ended. One member of that team, an osteologist named Kenshiro Mori, returned home and quit academia entirely. Friends say he stopped sleeping in the dark, stopped flying, stopped going inside buildings without windows. He told a colleague one sentence that became infamous: "Some things are meant to stay buried." A chilling thing to hear from a man who studies bones for a living. But the most disturbing rumor? He didn't leave because of something he saw. He left because of something he heard. A voice, quiet, breathless, whispering from inside the stone. "We are still here." He claimed it wasn't a hallucination. Not imagination. Not fear. He said he heard it again after he went home. Inside his apartment. Late at night. The same voice. That's when he left the field forever. During that same expedition, drones were sent into a sealed burial shaft. The feed transmitted live video back to the surface. At first, nothing strange. Just skulls, burial cloth, carved niches. Then, for 1 second, the drone camera glitched and captured something impossible. A body. Sitting upright. Not lying flat. Not slumped. Sitting. Head slightly turned. As if watching the camera arrive. When the recording was reviewed, the video file had a gap. A missing frame. 1 single second erased. But the audio remained. A scrape of stone. A slow, dragging sound. Like something shifting its weight. The team swore it was just corrupted data. Compression errors. Mechanical noise. But every person who heard the sound refused to enter the caves again. The footage was never released. And the drone? Never recovered. 1 year later, a European team attempted a new survey. Experienced climbers, expert geologists, modern 3D scanners. They entered through a main shaft they had used many times before. But on the second night, something terrifying happened. The entrance was gone. Not blocked by a cave-in. Not sealed by rock. Gone. As if the tunnel had never existed. Their radios worked. Their GPS worked. But when they followed their exact route back to the entrance, the wall was smooth, solid stone. The rescue team found them 14 hours later. Panicked, dehydrated, and screaming that the cave didn't want them to leave. When tested later, none showed signs of mental illness. No poisoning. No hallucination-inducing gases. All 3 explorers described the same thing. The walls moved. Nothing about this makes sense. Stone doesn't shift overnight. Tunnels don't vanish. Caves don't swallow entrances. Ancient mummies don't sit upright. Dead bodies don't whisper. And yet, the preservation exists. The footage vanished. The scientists refuse to return. And the caves remain untouched. Silent. Watching. Waiting. Because whether you believe the myths or the science, these caves hold one undeniable truth. Whatever lies inside wasn't meant for the world outside. Some dead never leave. Some secrets never decay. And some places, once entered, never truly let you go. Did you know the most terrifying discovery in these caves wasn't a skeleton, wasn't a curse, wasn't a whisper? It was movement. Real, biological movement. In 2015, a biomedical researcher named Dr. Ryo Ishikawa joined a small expedition with one goal: test the preserved bodies for signs of ancient diseases. They assumed the corpses were dry, lifeless, and harmless. Just data trapped in skin and bone. But on the second night, everything changed. Inside a chamber filled with mummified remains. Some sitting upright, some arranged in fetal positions. Some with arms crossed like guardians. Their thermal camera detected something strange. Not much. Not warm like a living human. But definitely above the surrounding air temperature. One body, an adult male, was warmer than the others. The team immediately thought the equipment was malfunctioning. Batteries fail. Sensors glitch. Electronics get confused in cold environments. So they switched devices. New battery. New scanner. Same result. A faint glow of heat. Right at the chest. Impossible. Bodies that old should be colder than stone. And then came the moment no one can explain. The chest moved. Just a tiny shift beneath the skin. A tightening. A release. Like a breath. Everyone froze. No one spoke. No one dared to blink. Someone whispered, "Did you see that?" The body didn't move again. The air was silent. The walls listened. But the scanner kept reading a pulse of warmth. Thud. 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 3 small spikes. Faint. Rhythmic. Like the dying echo of a heartbeat. That night, the team packed everything and climbed out before sunrise. They left equipment behind. They left samples behind. They left their research forever. Dr. Ishikawa retired the following year. He told a colleague one chilling sentence: "The dead are not as dead as we think." Months before that expedition, locals shared rumors about a particular mummy. A man with a carved marking on his forehead. A spiral symbol the villagers called the door. They warned, "Do not look too long. If you stare, he stares back." Most tourists thought it was superstition. But one visitor, a photographer from France, stared longer than most. He zoomed in, adjusting the focus on the dried mouth. The cracked lips. The preserved jaw. For a split second, through the viewfinder, the face changed. The mouth lifted. Barely. Just a fraction. A smile. The photographer gasped so loudly his own audio recorded it. But when he looked with his naked eye, the face was normal again. He laughed it off. Pressure. Fatigue. Imagination. But that night, while reviewing photos, the same smile appeared in every zoomed shot. Barely there. Subtle. Wrong. He deleted all photos. And never went back. Sometimes your mind plays tricks in the dark. Sometimes your camera sees things your eyes cannot. No one knows which one this was. Local folklore says the preserved bodies weren't ordinary villagers. They were chosen. Not cursed. Not punished. Preserved on purpose. The story claims the bodies are guardians. Not of treasure, but of history. A library of flesh. A memory made of bone. They say the spirits stay awake, listening, watching, waiting for the world to forget them. When outsiders enter, they are reminded. The dead will not be erased. It sounds poetic, beautiful, even. Until you ask the obvious question. If they are guardians, what are they guarding against? What is sealed beneath the stone? What lies deeper in the caves that no one has ever reached? The monks never answer. They simply say, some things below are still alive. In 2018, a climber camped near the cliff with a drone, hoping for nighttime footage. He flew the drone into one of the open chambers and listened through the onboard microphone. For a long time, nothing. Just wind. Static. Silence. Then, a new sound. Not a voice. Not whispers. Not movement. Breathing. Slow. Steady. Human. He screamed, yanked the drone back, and ran down the mountain. When authorities recovered the footage, the sound was still there. Slow. Measured. Like someone asleep. Scientists said it was interference. But the climber gave a different explanation. If something is breathing in there, that means it was never dead. So what's the truth? Natural mummification? Maybe. Ancient preservation ritual? Possible. But none of those explain. Bodies that give off heat. Chambers that change shape. Voices heard in recordings. Movement beneath dried flesh. And breathing in the dark. Unless death in these caves is not final. Unless something ancient and unfinished remains. Unless preservation was not an accident, but a transformation. Because when flesh refuses to rot, when bones refuse to crumble, and when silence breathes, you're not standing in a tomb. You're standing in a waiting room. For what? No one knows. But one thing is certain. Whoever those bodies once were, they still haven't let go. Before we continue, take a minute to subscribe for more stories like this. Did you know the greatest mystery of these caves isn't the bodies? It's time. Because people who spend too long inside, even just a few hours, come back changed. Not scared. Not injured. Older. In 2020, a research climber named Elise Mayer entered the lower chamber with a smartwatch, a GPS tracker, and a medical heart monitor. She recorded everything: heart rate, blood oxygen, temperature. Her plan was simple. Stay 30 minutes. Take pictures. Return. But when she climbed back to the surface, her team panicked. She had been gone 2 hours. Her devices told the truth. Every clock, every timestamp, every digital record matched. She spent 30 minutes inside. So where did the extra 90 minutes go? At first, people blamed device malfunction. bad reception, glitchy electronics. Until they tested her hair and nails. Both showed accelerated aging, as if her body experienced 2 full hours, while her mind experienced just 30 minutes. The difference was small, microscopic, even, but real, measurable, impossible. Scientists dismissed it as stress-related metabolic anomaly. But Elise knew better. She told friends, "The cave kept me longer than I remember." Decades earlier, a villager disappeared while hunting near the cliffs. A search party found him wandering out of a lower tunnel. Confused, dehydrated, shaking. He said he heard voices calling him deeper. Voices of people he knew were dead. They urged him to follow. He said he didn't feel time pass at all. He thought he was gone for an hour. He was gone for 24 hours. His skin was sunburned. His beard had grown. His clothes were stiff with sweat and dust. He told the elders, "The cave stole time from me." Everyone treated it as superstition. Until the same thing happened again. And again. Not to tourists. Not to foreigners. To locals. People who knew every inch of the mountain. Some lost hours. Some lost days. A few lost their minds. In 2019, a Nepalese drone operator launched a camera into a sealed chamber. It recorded stalactites, stone walls, burial chests. Normal. Then something strange happened. The video feed froze. The drone stopped responding. Everyone assumed it crashed. But when the SD card was recovered, the footage told a different story. The drone didn't malfunction. It hovered perfectly still. Silent. Unmoving. For 89 minutes. There wasn't a single sign of motion. No dust, no battery drain, no gyroscopic drift. Just stillness. As if time had paused around it. And then, at minute 90, the video cut to black. When scientists analyzed the file, they found something disturbing. The drone's internal sensors showed that only 4 minutes had passed. The memory card insisted on 90. 2 different clocks. 2 different realities. In the caves, time doesn't behave like time. One body, nicknamed the Watcher, is believed to be almost 800 years old. His skin is intact. His clothing preserved. Even his eyelashes remain. But the real horror? His blood. When researchers took a microscopic sample from beneath the nail, they expected dust. Dry cells. Nothing alive. Instead, they found hemoglobin. Not fresh, not flowing, but preserved in an unnatural state. Not rotting. Not breaking down. Frozen in time. It should be impossible. Blood decays within hours after death. So how is his still visible centuries later? Unless decay is suspended. Unless time inside the cave slows, stops, or loops. Some scientists theorize the caves act like natural cryogenic chambers. But that doesn't explain the voices, the heat signatures, the movement. And it definitely doesn't explain this. When carbon dating tests were run on the Watcher's teeth, They produced 3 different ages, 3 different centuries, 3 different results. As if his body existed in more than one timeline, or never fully left the first one. Local monks have a chilling belief. The preserved bodies never died. Their souls remain attached. Not ghosts. Not spirits. Something in between. The monks say the mountain itself is a doorway. Not a passage through earth, but through time. A place where the living and dead overlap. Where history isn't behind you. It surrounds you. One monk said a line that scientists dismiss as legend. No one buried in these caves has truly passed on. Their bodies wait for the world to catch up. If that's true, the bodies aren't ancient. They're current. Alive in a way we don't understand. Dead in a way we can't measure. Stuck in a loop, where time never finishes its work. So what if the caves don't preserve the dead? What if the caves trap life? Not ghosts. Not corpses. People. People who entered and never left. People whose bodies didn't rot, because their spirits never escaped. People frozen in time, breathing just slow enough to fool us into thinking they're gone. Because if time stops, death never completes. And if death never completes, the body waits forever.